Oh, hello, everybody. So yeah, we're finally gonna get to live. It's been kind of crazy. I've been planning them, but planning them at the wrong times, and then there's like a whole lot of stuff going on at the house, and just always something. But today we are here, and we're gonna talk about two things today. The first thing we're gonna talk about is why do victims stay? Um, just delving a little bit more into the whole National Domestic Violence Awareness Month theme. And why do people stay? Is a really good question, but it's not a question that can be answered with just a single answer because all relationships are complex. Whether it's parent child, spouse to spouse, uh, co workers, friends, all relationships are complex because even if a person has one primary reason for maintaining a relationship, that's never the only reason. Let's say someone befriends someone because this other someone has lots of money and they're free with their money to give it away. Well, that may have been the initial reason to want to be friends with them. I can get some of this money. But then you maintain the relationship anyway because of whatever your other reasons are. So it's especially true with domestic violence relationships. No one can say, well, I'm staying just for the kids. I'm staying for the money. I'm staying because I love them. I'm staying because I believe they can change. It's really going to be a mix of a bunch of different reasons. And so, in doing my little research, I came across two articles that I want to share. One, they're both linked in the description. One, we're just going to kind of brush through. We're not really going to read that. We're just going to go through the section titles, and then the other we're actually going to read. And the first section title on this one is fear. These are all reasons that people stay. And fear can be a very strong motivation to stay in a violent relationship. Not necessarily only fear of the abuser, but fear of the unknown, fear of what happens when I leave, fear of what comes next. Where am I going to go? How are my kids going to have clothes for school? How am I going to have medical coverage? It's who's going to fix my car? It could be so many things that uh, equal a fear strong enough to keep a person in a violent relationship. Um, Fear of loss of financial support, fear of loss of social status, uh, fear of what effect it may have on your career. Um, and y'all excuse me, I'm just getting over like a little. I had a chest cold real bad, which is another reason I haven't been coming on. But yeah. So fear is a very strong motivator in violent relationships, and there is, of course, the fear of the abuser, the fear of what are they going to do to me if I leave or try to leave. Next is control. Um, You'll find in abusive relationships that an abuser tends to exert a large amount of control over their partner, whether it's financial control. I handle the money, you work, but I make all the financial decisions. Um, whether it's fear of physical harm, fear that you may lose custody of your children, uh, fear of what might be said at church, whatever it is. But and I'm saying fear, but control really, because control. I got I got back on fear, but control. Um, and so the abuser uses that control that they have to manipulate the victim, you know, and to guide their decisions. You'll find a lot of times that a domestic violence victim doesn't really make very many independent decisions, even simple stuff like what they're going to have for lunch, because they are so used to that controlling force being exerted by the abuser. So, and another thing about control could not only be financial control or emotionally controlling someone by manipulating their feelings, but and some of these things are so subtle that it's hard to find words to really describe it. But control can come in the form of just a look or a noise made when the abused partner presents an idea. Um, let's say the abused partner says, "I want to go make a cheesecake." The abuser may make a certain grunt or look at them real quick out of the corner of their eye, and then all of a sudden the abusee doesn't want to make a cheesecake anymore because that look or that sound indicated that the abuser would not be satisfied with that or doesn't want that. So it's like really subtle and hard to explain, but there is that element of control. Promises over form. And this is a major one because you'll find where it's called love bombing, where an abuser will shower the victim with love, promises of change, gifts, um, treating them better, not being violent, not being verbally abusive for a while. And so making all these promises, it will never happen again. I'll do better. I'll get counseling. I'll whatever it is that they feel that the victim needs to hear in order to keep that victim there. Then we have guilt, and guilt comes in. We all know what it is to be put on a guilt trip, you know, to be made to feel as if certain things are your fault, or to be made to feel as if uh, taking a certain action will make you liable for negative impact on another person. Like they might have you feeling like if you leave, then I'll lose this, I'll lose that, I'll be brokenhearted, but making you feel sorry for them or making you feel as if you can't really make a move because it's going to have some awful negative effect on the abuser. And they are good at that's again that manipulation. Um, and guilt is also a form of control because we as people don't like to feel guilty about stuff. And so when we're made to feel guilty about a thing, then we feel like we need to repent for a thing or atone for a thing. And so there you have that manipulation and that control aspect again, just in a different form. Lack of self esteem. This one is really important because an abuser will, I told y'all, my last relationship, I was called so many everything but my name until when I finally got out of that relationship, it really felt kind of weird not to hear somebody call me out of my name. Hold on a second. Got a grandbaby. Emergency. But yeah, that it was it was strange when I finally got out of that relationship to realize just how bad this person made me feel about myself. I found that I lacked confidence in areas that I've always been confident in. Um, Not bragging, but I'm a very intelligent person. I'm very well read. I don't always speak like it because, hey, why? But I'm very well read. I hold a lot of knowledge. I see, baby. It's Baby Shark. You got Baby Shark? And in that relationship, I was always made to feel as if I really didn't know what I was doing or what I was talking about or how to do simple things like clean a house. You know, like I said, there were times when he would really get extremely angry because Taylor, Bubby, shh, shh. What, baby? I see it. You got Baby Shark and Mama Shark and Daddy Shark and William. And there were times like I had mentioned before that he really kind of went in because I didn't hold a cleaning rag exactly the way he held a cleaning rag when we were cleaning our desks with Murphy's oil soap. And because I didn't hold the rag exactly like he did, he just kept trying to instruct me on how to hold the rag and then making little comments that just made me feel just dumb as a brick, because just the way it was said. And so they really can, the abuser can really beat down a person's self-esteem, take away their confidence, even in areas that the person knows that they are very well skilled. I'm good with computers. I went to school for it for a little while. I can upgrade a computer in my sleep. um, I'm fairly good with software. I'm good at solving problems. But in that relationship, the way that I was treated made me feel less confident in my ability to do things that I knew I know how to do. And so you get that self-esteem issue, and then you feel like, oh, well, nobody else wants me. I wouldn't be able to survive on my own. I wouldn't have the strength to do this. I wouldn't know how to do that. And so they beat down your self-esteem as a means of keeping you there. And again, that's another control mechanism. Children, some people stay in a relationship for the benefit of the children, even though staying in the relationship is actually very harmful to the children. But they stay in the relationship because they want their children to have a mother and a father in the same home, or um, they want to make sure that they have the financial ability to support their children and to keep a roof over their head and food in their bellies and clothes on their back. Um, there are so many ways that children are used. Okay, an abuser might even constantly threaten that if you leave me, I'm going to take the kids. If you leave me, I'm going to tell them you're an unfit mother. I'm going to take you to court. I'm going to take custody. And so children are used as pawns and as another control mechanism in a relationship, um, to keep the person there. Love. Now, this one I'm actually going to read. It says most people enter a relationship for love, and the emotion does not simply disappear in abusive relationships. Most victims want the violence to end, but love their partner and want the relationship to work. And I will say that that is exactly how I felt in my last relationship because I loved this person so much, and I still do. I have been in love with this person since I was a teenager, like 19 years old, 18 years old, or something. And even though there was the almost constant verbal, emotional, psychological abuse, for the most part, we had a very good relationship. Um, and a lot of that verbal abuse really came from the issues that I've mentioned before that I can't really go into because of HIPAA and all that other kind of stuff, and liability and all that stuff. But um, for the most part, outside of dealing with the mental health issues, we had a very good relationship. We were best friends. We would go out fishing all night. We would go on random adventures. Uh, God, we followed a police chase one time. Just we would have a lot of fun together. We would talk. We were like best friends. Um, you didn't see one without the other. But then there were times when there was that abuse. But for the most part, I really felt like if I just stick it out, because this person has been through some really bad relationships just like I have and has been hurt, and maybe if I just stick it out and let them see that I love them, that I'm here for them, I have their back. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going to do this thing to you that these other people have done to you. And hey, Sherry. And so, excuse me, love was not lost. Love was actually the motivation to try to stay, because if I love this person enough, or if this person loves me enough, then eventually things will change. Finances. We kind of already talked about that a little bit. Controlling the. Can you guys hear Bubby really loud in the background? Really, what, Bubby? That's a baby. I see, baby. Here. Let me turn this on. Let's see if that helps. Hey, baby, I love you. I'm trying out Chris on Sleuth Moms. She's praised it so much till I'm gonna try. I got it. I'm turning it on now so I can see if it'll kind of help with the Bubby thing, because Bubby is on it today. She is having a very good day. And I'm gonna have to get out of her way in a minute so she can do her schoolwork, because I'm surprised she hasn't already told me, get away from my computer. Oh, baby. What, baby? No. No. All right, got Chris turned on. Let's see how it works. Okay. Finances. Um, Another way of controlling and manipulating is to run the finances. Now, me, the way that I was raised, I fully believe in a wife um, following the headship of her husband. And so the way that I was raised in the household that I was raised in, I saw things done a certain way. And so for me, it was easy to, hey, my baby, it was easy to allow my partner to control finances or whatever, because I'm just going to be honest with you, I'm not real good with money. And making sure bills get paid on time, because I will forget, or I'll go in the store and I'll see something shiny, and hey, shiny, I need to buy this right now. And so I really didn't have a whole lot of problem with letting him control the finances, because there's very little that I need. I am not a hard to please person. As long as I got my basics, I got some devices, I got a roof over my head, food in my back, clothes in my food in my belly, and clothes on my back, I'm pretty much okay. But I did not realize just how much finances were being used to maintain control and to keep me in this relationship that was kind of benefiting him a lot more than it was benefiting me. Because even though I worked, I really never had two pennies to rub together. I couldn't just go and get. I remember I wanted to get my hair braided down, so that I could do some crochet braids one time. The girl only wanted $10. I did not have $10 to pay her, but I worked full time. And for somehow I just never did come up with this. I could never have this $10 to get my hair braided down so I could do my crochet braids. And that seems so weird and so petty, but it was the truth. Because we would sit down every time it was coming up to payday, and we would go over whatever the household bills were. And for some reason, it always seemed like it took all my money to take care of bills, which really there really wasn't that much of. We didn't have that many bills at the house. When you sat back and counted up the money that I put out, there was not that many bills at the house. Bubby, I need you to stop, okay? Stop. I love you, but I need you to stop. You got orange juice right there. I need you to settle down, okay? You want my drink? Here. You can drink the rest of mine. Here. Oh, well, you don't want any drink then. Yeah, he was very controlling. As a matter of fact, when everything finally hit the fan and the relationship ended, it was November 1st, 2020. I had just gotten paid, because I got paid every other week. I had just gotten paid like maybe a day or two before that. We sat down, we went over the bills, and I sent him like half of what everything was, because it's the first of the month. You got rent, you got other things that are due. Stop. And the phone bills, baby, please, 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 please. Aren't you going to go outside with Tato? Go outside with Tato. And so I had just gotten paid, and for some reason, even though I sent him half on it, he came up with something else that needed some more money. So by the time because I always paid the phone bill, by the time I paid the phone bill, gave him half, then turned around and had to give him some more money, then there was nothing there. So when all this went down, even though I had been just got a paycheck within 24, 48, 72 hours of all these events occurring to where I needed to leave, I didn't even have money to put gas in my tank to leave. So yeah, that is another aspect of control and manipulation that's used um, to keep people in a relationship, to keep a victim under the thumb of the abuser. So now I want to switch over to this other article. I was just really kind of talking about that because that can be very key, you know, because a lot of people don't understand why people stay in these types of relationships. And like I said, relationships are complex. So you're never going to get this one answer of this is the one reason that I stay, because it's really there are a lot of reasons. You know what I'm saying? Like in my situation, had I even been thinking about, well, let me save up some money to move out and we can maintain a relationship, but you live over there and I live over here, I could never even save the money to do that. I worked for a year, needed $750 to buy a transmission, and I never could save the money to buy the transmission. I ended up having to borrow it to buy a transmission for my truck. So and you would think that in a year of working full time, that you could scratch out $750 if just by putting away what, maybe $10 a week or so. But like I said, that's just another aspect of control and manipulation that are used. Baby, I don't have any socks. I don't I what? Don't cry. Don't cry. I don't have any white socks. Go tell Tato to come here so I can get her to get you some socks. There's some socks on the table. Okay? Can you no, don't yell. Can you go tell Tato, say Gigi wants you? Go tell Tato Gigi wants you. That's my baby. I love my baby. Okay, so this article we are going to go through because it's a very good article. This is on ncadv.org, and I have this one linked in the description as well. Exactly, Rob. They make you feel like you can't leave sometimes because, as we just went through, they use so many different tactics of control and manipulation to you don't even really feel confident in yourself that you could maintain. I'm 46 years old. I've been taking care of myself for a long time. I've lived a long time making sure I had a roof over my head, food in my belly, and clothes on my back. But during some relationships, because I've really had like three main relationships that were just abusive as hell, but in those three relationships, it was nothing for me to feel like I didn't even possess the skills that I knew I had. I mean, I had a house full of kids. I got to know how to clean up. You know. All right, hold on a second. What's up, Tato? Some chips? Yes. Can you find Bubby some socks, please? Did you find her some shoes too? She already got some shoes to put on. Her, you can go. You can go get your chips, but when you get your chips, help Bubby find some shoes and some socks because she want to go outside with you. Oh well, mate. She can watch TV with you. Yeah. So here we go. This is on ncadv.org. Why do victims stay? Um, and of course, there is the information to contact the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 800-799-7233 or 800-799-SAFE. Um, So let's dive in. When it is a viable option, it is best for victims to do what they can to escape their abuser. However, this is not the case in all situations. Abusers repeatedly go to extremes to prevent the victim from leaving. In fact, leaving an abuser is the most dangerous time for a victim of domestic violence. One study found in interviews with men who have killed their wives that their threats of separation, that the threats that either threats of separation or their partner or actual separations are most often the precipitating events that led to the murder. Sorry, y'all, I can't brain today. A victim's reason for staying with their abuser are extremely complex, as I said, and in most cases are based on the reality that their abuser will follow through with the threats they have used to keep them trapped. The abuser will hurt or kill them. They will hurt or kill the kids. They will win custody of the children. They will harm or kill pets or others. They will ruin their victim financially. The list goes on. The victim in violent relationships knows their abuser best and fully knows the extent to which they will go to make sure they have and can maintain control over the victim. The victim literally may not be able to safely escape or protect those they love. A recent study of intimate partner homicides found 20% of homicide victims were not the domestic violence victims themselves, but family members, friends, neighbors, and persons who intervened, law enforcement responders, or bystanders. And we talked about that the other night because when we went through that fact sheet, and that's crazy that there's such a high percentage of people who die as a result of domestic violence who aren't even involved in the situation directly as far as being in the relationship. Additional barriers to escaping a violence relationship include, but are not limited to, oh, I thought it was me not being able to read. This is not worded right. It's not me. Yay. The fear that the abuser's actions will become more violent and may become lethal if the victim attempts to leave. I have indeed felt that fear. I told you my one abuser that we call Dallas. Dallas choked me to the point that I passed out. That scared me literally to death because I was that close to dying that day. If he had to squeeze just a little bit longer, no more savage. Unsupportive friends and family, and that is very key because okay, hold on a second. Okay, uns- unsupportive friends and family, and that is very key because without a support system and people that you know that you can count on to be there when you need them, it's very, very, very important. In my last relationship, the one where I ended up with the broken ribs, had I not known, had I not had someone there that could say, "Hey, look, just come over here. I got you. Don't worry about it. Come where I'm at." Hold on. Yes, yeah, y'all get some chips. Close that door back because Uncle Mike is trying to sleep. But had I not had, oh God, I just choked up my gum. Had I not had that person there that said, "Just come on, pack your stuff and come on, I got you," then I would have probably still been there trying to figure out, now how do we work around these broken ribs? How do we work out this relationship in the midst of this type of violence toward me? Because that really messed me up mentally. I have never had a broken bone. I have rode down Dead Man's Hill on a bike with no brakes, jumped off scooters, climbed trees, climbed houses. I have never in my life had a broken bone until then. So it really freaked me out. It really freaked me out to I can't even really explain it. But had I not had that support system there, I would have still been there. Um, Knowledge of the difficulties of single parenting and reduced financial circumstances. So again, the kids and money. Kids and money are two of the most overused forms of manipulation in domestic violence relationships, if you ask me. Because as a mother, I know how I feel about my kids. I will walk through hell and gasoline drawers for them. But had I ever found myself in a situation where someone is threatening me that I would lose my kids if I left them, I probably would have been trying to figure out how to stay there. Because the thing about an abuser, it's like even if you know you're a good parent, they can phrase things and point out little minor things and talk about them in such a way that you feel like you are the worst parent in the world. I've seen it happen. I've seen it done. Simple things like your kid falling off a bike and scraping their knee, and they will have you feeling like you're just the worst parent ever in life because the kid scraped their knee. That didn't personally happen to me, but I've seen it. So the kids and money. And as a mother, I also know that I would do whatever I had to do to make sure that my kids had things. I wanted my kids to be able to uh, play in little league or have money on school days when they needed money to buy something extra or go to the little school store or whatever. And so if I was willing to do what I had to do to make sure that they could have such small things, how do you think someone would feel if they were in a position where they're being threatened with loss of not the ability just to make your kid happy, but loss of shelter, loss of food, loss of whatever it is that you need to take care of your kid, the big stuff, transportation to get insurance to take them to the doctors with. So kids and money are a very big point of manipulation in domestic violence cases. The victim feeling the relationship is a mix of good times, love, and hope, along with the manipulation, intimidation, and fear. And that is true because even in violent relationships, it's not always violent. It's not like in most, I won't say all, but I want to say that in most violent relationships, it's not like your abuser is coming home and beating the dog crap out of you every day. You know what I'm saying? It's not like somebody's throwing cans of food at your head every single day. There's a buildup. There's a there's kind of a lull, and everything is cool. Everything's kosher. It's just like a normal relationship. You're laughing and joking and watching TV and inside jokes, having fun, going out to eat, all this good stuff. And then there is a buildup in the tension, and then the violence, then the apologies and the manipulation and the lull and the violence, and it just goes on and on and on. And that lull, that period between violent episodes may be a couple of days, it may be a couple of years. Because me and my last relationship, we were together for close to 6 years, and there was only like a seriously violent episode maybe three times in all those 6 years. Three really violent ones. There was like the time my ribs were broken, the time I got bitten in the back, and Uh, there was one other, but I can't really remember what it was. Other than that, it was mental, emotional, psychological, you know. But for the most part, we had a good relationship. We had fun together. We got along. There was no problems. Just normal relationship problems. So there is that mix of good times and bad times, and usually the good times outweigh the bad times. And so there's not always that urgency to feel like I need to get out of this. This is harmful to me because during the good times, you have hope and you see a brighter future and you see this person as being able to overcome whatever it is that causes them to hurt you sometimes until the time comes that he hurts you again or she. Um, the victim's lack of knowledge of or access to safety and support. I say it all the time. I wish I had known about the hotline.org. There are times in my life that I really could have used that website. And so that's a resource that I did not know existed. Most victims probably don't know about who to call, where to go, what to ask for, because it's not often that you have to think about it. It's not often that it's crossing your mind that I need a backup plan, because like they just pointed out, there's that lull, there's that love, and that hope for the future or whatever. It's only in the time of crisis that you're thinking about, I need resources, and you might not know how to go about finding them or who to ask for them. And so you feel like you have to stay because you don't know that there's support out there for you. You don't know that there's a safety net out there for you. Fear of losing custody of children if they leave or divorce their abuser, or fear the abuser will hurt or even kill their children, very real. One case that always sticks out to me is, and I'm sorry I can't remember the name, but you guys will know exactly what I'm talking about. A few months back, the guy, he was like a former police officer or something, and his girlfriend, and his two children from a previous relationship were like, he took the kids and was on the run or whatever, and he ended up killing the kids and killing himself. And for the mother of those children, he probably and most likely had threatened her several times in the past that he would do that. The threat was probably put out there that he would, I'll kill him before I let you have him. Lack of means to support themselves and or their children financially, or lack of access to cash, bank accounts, or assets. Again, back to that financial manipulation. You don't, you know, where am I going to go? How am I going to support myself? How am I going to take care of my kids? Lack of having somewhere to go, e.g., no friends or family to help, no money for a hotel, shelter programs are full or limited by length of stay. So again, not having that support system and not having that safety net there to fall back on. Fear that homelessness may be their only option if they leave. That's a very strong fear, especially for someone who's never had to face homelessness before. They have no idea what to expect should they actually have to be homeless. They probably have a really convoluted idea of what it's like to be homeless. And so that is a fear that can keep somebody in place, really and truly. Religious or cultural beliefs and practices that may not support divorce or may dictate outdated gender roles and keep the victim trapped in the relationship. That is another good point, because being raised in a religious family, my I was raised by my great grandparents. My great grandfather was a pastor, and my great grandmother was a missionary. And so these are the people that I was raised with. So I grew up with certain understandings of how familial dynamics work, how marriage works, how family works. And so for me, I know that there are some things that I was taught and that I learned and that I saw that really affect me even to this day. Like, I won't wear certain types of clothes just because of the way that I was raised. You know what I'm saying? Like, if shorts are too short, I'm not putting that on. I and it's just the way that I was raised. It's what was instilled in me, what was taught to me, what was demonstrated in front of me. That even throws back to what I was saying about me being submissive in relationships and not having a problem with allowing the man to basically be a man, because the way that I was raised, I saw my great grandfather's role as the man in the head of the house. I saw my great grandmother's role, but then again, they were born in 1911 and 1914. So it was a lot different back then. But that was my example. That's what taught me what to do. I'm honestly, if I were married, I probably wouldn't leave my husband, even if it was violent. I'd probably move out, but I doubt I would go for a divorce. And I would probably more than likely still try to maintain, correct, or repair that relationship. So again, that religious and cultural beliefs can be so strongly instilled in a person that it's almost carved in stone. Belief that two-parent households are better for children despite abuse. Again, that manipulation of the using children as a manipulation. And then again, this is also not so much a manipulation by using the children, although it can be, but just your own beliefs. How many times have we seen where back in the 40s, 50s, 60s, or whatever, people stayed because of the children? They might have slept in entirely different rooms in the house, lived totally separate lives, but they stayed together because of the children, even though the relationship was totally jacked. And so, again, that's the religious and cultural beliefs that are ingrained in you. Okay. Societal barriers to escaping a violent relationship. In addition to individual obstacles victims face when escaping violent relationships, society in general presents barriers. These include a victim's fear of being charged with desertion, losing custody of children or joint assets, anxiety about a decline in living standards for themselves and their children, reinforcement of clergy and secular counselors of saving a couple's relationship at all costs rather than the goal of stopping the violence. And that is a very important one because in any situation where there is a violent relationship, the main goal needs to be to stop the violence, not to save the relationship, not to maintain the marriage, not to avoid a divorce, but to stop the violence. That should be the primary goal. Lack of support to victims by police officers and law enforcement who may treat violence as a quote domestic dispute instead of a crime where one person is physically attacking another person. Often victims of abuse are arrested and charged by law enforcement even if they're only defending themselves against the batterer. I had that happen to me. ABC, I had that happen to me with Dallas. Now, with Dallas, it was horrible. The man had been physically violent to me. He destroyed my property. He cost me jobs. He actually raped me and kept me hostage in my house for almost a week. But even after all that, and he knew how to manipulate the laws out there because Texas has some really strange laws that I never would have thought of being from Florida. And he knew how to manipulate those laws to his benefit. And so when I finally just snapped and had enough, I beat the hell out of him. I beat the hell out of him. And I went to jail because I won the fight. When the police came, they're supposed to look for who is the primary aggressor. And usually the way they decide who the primary aggressor is, whoever got their butt kicked the worst, the other one is the primary aggressor. Instead of actually finding out who started it, what was going on, what happened. And so I found myself in that situation. They didn't worry about the fact that he had been doing all day. He had been being abusive toward me. He had been tearing up things. I had just bought like my first expedition. I miss my baby, but I had just bought my first expedition. He was tearing up stuff, and the inside was in mint condition. He started banging on the radio, destroying it. I had bought a subwoofer that I wanted to hook up in the back. He's sitting there just popping pieces out of the speaker. Beating on my windows, trying to shatter my windows and stuff, and I could not get him out of my truck. And I was trying so hard to get him out of the truck, and I really just lost it. I took the tire jack thing, and I just started beating the hell out of him. But because I won the fight, even though he started it and kept it going all day and destroyed my property and everything else, because he got the worst of it, I had to go to jail. I wasn't the primary aggressor, but when they come out there and they try to figure out what's going on, it's pretty much, well, you lost the fight, so the other person is going to jail. where we at? Dissuasion by police of the victim filing charges. Some dismiss or downplay the abuse, side with the abuser, or do not take the victim's account of the abuse seriously. We kind of saw a little bit of that in the Gabby Petito Brian laundry. You saw how the police were kind of just laughing and joking with him, and yeah, my wife does this sometimes, and I know how it can be, and da 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 da. And the next thing we know, he murdered her. It escalated from slapping her in public to a few days later, she was dead in the woods. And so that was an obvious case of where the police didn't really pay attention, didn't really do their job to the best of their ability, kind of took sides and kind of looked at Gabby as basically the crazy girlfriend with the emotional problems or whatever. She's all hype and hysterical, and you know, so a lot of times it boils down to police not really doing their job, not really um, basically taking sides when they get there of who has the best talk game, honestly. Reluctance by prosecutors to prosecute cases. Some may convince the abuser plea plea to a lesser charge, thus further endangering victims. Additionally, judges rarely impose the maximum sentence upon convicted abusers. Probation or a fine is much more common. And that is the truth. It's very hard to get someone prosecuted. It can be. And they're not getting prosecuted could be just as simple as you missed a court date, whether intentionally or unintentionally. You missed a court date, charges are dropped. With Dallas, um, that was probably like my most violent relationship, the most police activity involved, which is why I keep referring back to Dallas. Um, with Dallas, sometimes it was hard to get them to even want to press charges, especially if like he had done something to me and then left before they got there. I lived right across the street from Walmart, and so there were times when he did something to me, and I know he was just right there at Walmart. He probably wasn't even in the store. He was probably just sitting on the bus stop bench out by the road. But because he was not physically there, they didn't want to do anything. They didn't want to issue a warrant. They didn't really want to take a report. One time they gave him a freaking citation. He had just knocked the crap out of me and broke my $400 glasses, and they issued him a citation, which is less than a minute. It weighs less than a misdemeanor. So, yeah, reluctance of prosecutors to prosecute the cases. They're instead of trying to uh, enforce the law and make sure that the punishment is appropriate, a lot of these prosecutors are just going for the numbers. If I can get them to plead out, that's a guilty. That's one for my team. It's better for my stats. And so instead of taking the time to really try to get at the issue and to apply the appropriate punishment, they're just looking for any punishment that'll chalk one up on their scoreboard. Despite the issuing of restraining order, there is little to prevent a release abuser from returning and repeating abuse. There really is, because with a restraining order, that's just something that says that they can't be there. But really and truly, most of the time, if the police come and you have a restraining order and that person is left before they got there, they are not going to do anything. Call us if he comes back. Despite greater public awareness and the increased availability of housing for victims fleeing violent partners, there are not enough shelters to keep victims safe. There really are not. There are not enough shelters. There are not enough resources. There are not enough programs out there to really support domestic violence victims and survivors the way that they deserve. There's really not. I remember, and I'm gonna call him. I'm gonna call him Bishop. He was from a really religious family. This is my other really violent relationship. There were two that were really, really, really violent, physically violent, and the one that was mostly like emotional, mental words. So Bishop was one of the very, very violent ones. That was Mr. Don't You Just Love Angry Sex. When I was in that relationship, and I by the time I eventually got out of it, I called Favor House, which is the domestic violence like shelter and advocacy center in my hometown, and there was really nothing that they could do for me. They had no space to offer me, they had no guidance to offer me, they had no other resources to refer me to. And then I had a breast pump from WIC. When I had a breast pump from WIC because they would let you borrow them. WIC actually wanted me to go back to the house to get the breast pump. And I'm like explaining to them what the situation is. Well, you can go and get it, or we're going to have to press charges on you. I said, look, you're in a better position than I am to go over there and get it because you can take the police over there and get your breast pump because it's your problem. It's your property. If I go there, I'm liable to get abused again. And we went the rounds about that. They really wanted to press charges on me about a breast pump instead of understanding that I was in a very seriously violent relationship that I had just gotten out of, and I didn't want any parts of going back over there. Yeah, they eventually went and got their own breast pump, but yeah, that's the type of nonchalant or uncaring attitudes that the victims can encounter. And Ross says, what do you think needs to be done to properly help abused women? Well, honestly, I think that just like with CPS, it needs to be torn down and reconstructed from the bottom up because a lot of the resources that are out there go based on antiquated beliefs and ideas and understandings. They're not really keeping up with the times, not really uh, up to date on a lot of things. And then domestic violence is like a topic that nobody really talks about. And so it's not something that's out there all the time and on people's minds like, oh, I need to donate to my local domestic violence victims shelter, or I need to donate some resources, or find out how to help or understand this problem a little better because it's really not publicized like that. So it doesn't get the attention. It's not on people's minds. Lord, I thought I was sharing the page the whole time and I wasn't. But it's not on people's minds like that. So one of the first things that needs to be done is we need more awareness for it, not just in October in National Domestic Violence Victims Awareness Month. We don't need it once a year. We need people out there talking about this issue. We need mainstream media covering this issue. We need people have such a stereotypical view of domestic violence just because of the way that it's presented by the sources that be, you know. So when we hear a story on the news about some guy that murdered his baby's mom, or some woman that hurt her kids to get back at her ex, we don't even really take it with the gravity that we should. I've even heard people say, well, she shouldn't have went back. Are you serious? She's over here dead, and all you can say is she shouldn't have went back. You don't know what her situation was. You don't know what her thought process was. You don't know what her needs were. You don't know if she left and tried to do it and couldn't do it on her own and ended up back in that situation or what. So we don't even have enough awareness to make domestic violence important to enough people for it to matter enough for the resources and excuse me, for the resources to be put in there by the government and the powers that be. All right, we're almost done. The socialization of some made to believe they are responsible for making their relationship work. Failure to maintain the relationship equals failure as a person. And again, that's that antiquated beliefs. Though, hold on, going back to a time when you stayed because the kids and you just don't get a divorce, or the religious belief that you don't get divorced, you don't leave your spouse, it's for life, regardless. Um, Cultural norms. And I've heard people say, now this saying kills me. It's better to have a piece of man than to have no man at all. I say the devil is a lie. I don't want a piece of man. I want the whole thing, and I want it right. And I'd rather be by myself other than to accept something lower than my standards. And so when you have these type of things being taught and instilled in people in their cultures, in their various cultures, of course you're just going to have a mess. You're just going to have domestic violence that goes from generation to generation to generation. You're going to have a series of victims who accept it and stay because that's the way that they've been taught to believe that it should be. Socialization. Isolation from friends and families, either by jealous or possessive abuser, or because they feel ashamed of the abuse and try to hide signs of it from the outside world. The isolation contributes to a sense that there is nowhere to turn. That is so true. In my relationship with Dallas, when I moved to Texas, I didn't know a single soul out there. I left my home in Florida with 10 cents, a Bible, and one change of clothes. I made it to Dallas by the grace of God. And I didn't have a soul out there. I had never been there. I never thought about going there. It's just where I ended up being because I wanted to change. And so I had no friends because all I did when I got there was look for work. And when I found a job, all I did was work. I didn't have time for socialization. I met Dallas on the train. He held the train door open and would not let it close until I gave him my phone number. And he seemed like such a perfect guy. But the isolation, the not having friends, once we got deeper into the relationship, he didn't like for me to call anybody. The few people that I did call, he didn't really like for me to talk to people. Even his own family. He didn't like for me to talk to his own family. So can you imagine being at somebody's house for like Christmas dinner or something and feeling like you can't talk to anybody? You're saying like the bare minimum because you know that this person's gonna flip out when you get home if you talk too much to people. And that's kind of an extreme case, but in most relationships, yeah, there is that isolation that making you feel bad about or making you feel some type of way about having friends. They find fault with your friends so that you have to cut your friends off. They make it a me or them type of choice. Um, Interrupting you on phone calls to the point that you can't talk. You know, having problems with the things that you're posting on your social media, things that you're posting for your friends and family, but they're making a big deal out of nothing. Well, why did you post this? Why did you post that? Why is so and so tagging on your comments? Why is this person all over your post? So the isolation, and then that gets you away from having someone that you can call. Once they get you isolated, they know that they've caused you to alienate your friends and family so much till they're not worried about you calling them for backup. You know, they're not worried about you getting on the phone and calling your brother to come kick some butt. They're not worried about you calling your mom and telling her what's going on and mom sending you some money to leave because they have caused an alienation there with the people that you care for and who care for you. The rationalization of the victim that their abuser's behavior is caused by stress, alcohol, problems at work, unemployment, or other factors. Now, all except for the alcohol, I'm going to say I agree with that sentence because with my last relationship, he was a perfect person until he drank. He was just one of the people that could not handle their alcohol. They could not handle alcohol. It just wasn't going to work. And so, as long as he didn't drink anything, he was the best person in the world that you wanted to know. But when alcohol came in, he turned into an entirely different person. So, but the rationalization of the victim on behalf of the abuser. I want to say Stockholm syndrome, and also a lot of cultural inputs, because you get to the point where you're making excuses for the abuser and why they abuse. Inconsistency of abuse. During nonviolent phases, the abuser may fulfill the victim's dream of romantic love. The victim may also rationalize the abuser is basically good until something bad happens and they have to let off steam. I think we've already kind of talked about this a whole lot during the course of me just talking about my previous relationships, because you get that lull, you get that time period where things are just almost perfect, and then the tension builds and the stress builds to the point where it boils over, and then you get the apologies, and then you get that lull where everything is good, and then the tension builds up and it boils over and over, and it's a cycle, be it a long cycle or a short cycle, it's a cycle. The boiling point might come once a week, once every other month, or in my case, once every year or two. But it's a cycle, be it a long interval or a short interval, it's a cycle. And excuse me, during the calm parts of that cycle, the victim may think that the abuser has really made a change for the better, is really trying to better himself or herself and trying to not be an abuser, until the boiling point comes again, and then we start it all over again. Well, thank you guys for hanging in there with me today. I really just wanted to get this out there. I will not be doing the other live today. I might do it tonight. If not, I'll do it tomorrow. I think I gave my voice a run for its money. My throat is starting to feel scratchy again. But as soon as I'm up for talking some more, I will be back and we will talk about men being victims too, because women are not the only victims of domestic violence situations. And a lot of people may think, well, if a man is a victim, then he must be in a gay relationship. And that is not true either, because sometimes women are the abusers in straight relationships. I've seen it with my own eyes. So that's what we'll be talking about the next time we get together. We'll be talking about men can be victims too. Thanks, guys, for joining and watching. Share, 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 and keep pushing awareness even beyond October. Thanks.